And welcome to our special edition of Biddle Europe on Saturday, December 14th. How's everybody doing?
Good
Doing
evening.
great,
all.
Rocco.
Hi guys. Yep.
Yay.
We are open for business.
Feeling wibbly wobbly.
All right. So we are going to actually change it up, Zeb.
Mm-hmm.
So usually with the Biddle Europe, we kind of go with the distro of the week or month or whatever we're doing, and we start the first hour. But we're going to change it up. What do you say?
I think that's a good idea because the people in the Europe edition don't really get the opportunity to do the challenges every week or every other week, and they're probably sitting there thinking, "Oh, I wish I could talk about Ubuntu 2 weeks ago or Lubuntu 4 weeks ago, but it wasn't the Europe edition." So, yeah, if someone wants to mention Elementary, fine, but otherwise, let's just have a chat amongst friends. I think it's a great idea.
Yay.
So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to have the full 2 hours of us just talking about Linux, which is awesome. But like I said, like Zeb said, if you want to bring up Elementary and your take on it, that's perfectly fine too. So
I think I'm going to hold my opinion for the show tonight.
The main show, exactly, yeah.
Well, if you haven't heard, we will be having Daniel Foray and Cassidy on the 8 p.m. show to listen to the feedback, to answer questions. I'm hoping they'll be able to stay for the full 2 hours. That would be awesome because we're not only going to give our take on Elementary, but we're also going to have like a question and answers. And I picked up some questions from our Telegram group. And if you want to have any questions answered during that show, you just have to either join the Telegram group or just put them into the YouTube chat, and we will try to collect them and get them answered for you tonight. Other than that,
Nice.
what is going on? What is new?
Well, there's a new one for you. Do you remember we talked a couple of weeks ago about the debacle of Zorin, and then suddenly just chucking in the background it's going to ping you every hour or so?
Oh,
well, I just recently installed 15.1, and already they have made the change. So on the screen where you pick what you want to do you want the additional drivers? There is then the option to opt out of giving any data. And unfortunately for you, Rocco, it is an opt out because it's left unticked, or it's left, I can't remember if it's ticked or unticked, but you have to make the conscious decision not to give it. If you don't bother, it will take it anyway from you.
Well, look, I think that they should, I think everybody should have that setting in there in the installer or in the welcome screen, wherever you want it. Anybody who's putting that collecting information in there, it should just be a screen that just, you have to make a choice. You physically have to make a choice. The next is not highlighted until you do, but it's at least in there, Zeb, and you can at least opt out, which is the best point.
Absolutely. And another nice little addition, if you're a gamer, they've included Feral Interactive's game mode already. So you don't have to do anything. Yeah, not that it's hard to do on an Ubuntu flavor. It's like 5 commands, but it's a nice little add-on. And then they've got the latest Office. So I thought that was a nice little, and they got it in exactly like they said they would. As soon as we can make the change, we'll put it in. So I thought that was pretty good of them to get it in that quick.
Well, I think that was good. Can everyone hear me now?
We certainly can.
Yeah, Steam was trying to update while I was trying to broadcast.
Oh, that'll do it.
All right. But yeah, I think that's good that Zorin made that change. I went out and tried to install it last night, and it actually popped up right on my screen. I was like, that was really, really quick for them, actually. So I'm glad they got that corrected.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they needed to get it done quickly. I'm glad to see that they did.
Yeah.
And they didn't drag their feet on it because, that brought up a lot of problems.
Yeah,
it did. But what was amazing was, and it was Popey, I think he mentioned it in a Telegram chat, and I thought he might be on tonight, but I think he might be having some technical issues. Do you remember what was that one that you put on and then dish it out to people who haven't got lots of internet? What was that called?
Endless.
Endless OS. Just take it. Thank you very much. We'll have some of that. They don't even ask you. They don't even warn you. I don't think it said he was even in the documentation. But he noticed that they had the popularity contest on, and yet nobody made a fuss about that one. So why was it a fuss about Zorin? Is it because a YouTuber went, "Oh, shock horror, you did it"?
No, I don't think it was just because of a YouTuber, honestly. I think I probably would have made a bigger stink if I had known about it or had thought about it at the time we tried Endless. So I just think that that's wrong to collect data without asking. So
yeah, I like the way Ubuntu approached it. They were transparent about how they were going to do it before they put it in the LTS release right before 1804.
And Alan Pope's just typed, Endless even tracks how long you have each application open.
Well, then Endless is not going on my machine. I can tell you that.
Man, that's exactly what Windows does. So why would I want to install Endless on something like that because I switched to Linux full time to get away from that stuff. So
if they asked you, I can understand why they want it, because what they're doing is they're giving you a distribution that's got absolutely everything in it. So why put packages in there that nobody ever uses?
But is it not like Windows 10 where it gets to learn what you do and then quietly installs some apps in the background, say?
Don't know. Who knows? I've never run it long enough to experiment with that sort of thing.
I mean, I get the whole idea of why you want this information. I understand you want metrics. I understand you want to know what people like, what they don't like. You need to measure how much of a success everything is. I get that, but I think you should do it in the right way and ask people to participate. And like I said, make them make a choice. Make them say either yes or no, and then you get all the metrics you need, either from them opting out or from them opting in.
Well, and I'll just say as well, so Endless may be collecting this, but the whole point of it is that you're not running it with an internet connection, so it's kind of doesn't matter.
Pointless.
Like they're not going to get any data from a disconnected PC.
But maybe the next time you do connect, the first thing it does is suck up all those metrics. It might be storing them somewhere, but who knows? Yeah,
could be.
And until one of us agrees to sit there on, Rocco, but use Endless for a year and let us know. Hang on a minute. No, we've been down that road, and
it couldn't even use Solus for a year.
Hang on. He won't even make New Year's.
Wait. In my defense on that Solus thing, I screwed it up before this challenge started, so that really doesn't count. I'm just saying.
Oh, wow. Slippery.
I've been on Ubuntu for a solid year, so I got that going for me.
Good man.
Ubuntu is a solid distribution, so.
Well, I did install Telemetry on this machine this week because I had already had it installed on the main machine, did I say? Like on a different drive, on a test drive. And so I put it on the test machine here now. And I'm going to save my review for later, but it is pretty awesome. Just saying.
If you like GNOME.
Well, someone mentioned.
No, Tony, if you like beauty, it's awesome.
I will
Sorry,
admit,
Eric, go ahead.
That's a very.
I will admit it is a
topic.
It is.
That's a very subjective. Anyway,
someone
mentioned.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Peggy.
I said I will admit, Telemetry OS when I first turned it on, it's a beautiful desktop. That is one thing I did like.
Yeah, I've currently got it in front of me on on another laptop in a virtual machine, and it looks gorgeous. But if anyone's listened to Distro Hoppers Digest this month, I did Ubuntu 1910 GNOME edition for a month, and it was driving me crackers.
Hey, I like me Ubuntu GNOME, so.
Well, so someone mentioned Ubuntu, and I'm really looking forward to the 20.04 release for lots of different reasons. The 1910 release has been great for me on all the different Ubuntus because of the driver support for the hybrid graphics, the Optimus support, the newer kernel. So it's been great. A couple things. One is there's an Ubuntu LTS survey that's out there. If folks haven't heard about it, go take it. It's not going to take you too long, 15 minutes or so, and it's great because it gives you an opportunity to voice your opinion on what's important to you. Good stuff.
Yeah, and they're also looking for users who've never used Ubuntu as well. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they're finally doing that. We've been telling them to do that for a little while, but they haven't
done it for a few years, actually. Yeah.
Oh, they did it for 9
every few years.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that, but then again, I haven't installed an LTS version since 1804. So,
do we have a link for that survey somewhere?
I'll grab it. I have it somewhere. The only thing I'll mention is just if you use the way they ask it is if you use the Ubuntu desktop, and what they really mean is if you use any of the flavors. Because there's questions later on that if you don't answer yes that you use the Ubuntu desktop, that you won't actually get a chance to answer the desktop portion of things. So just make sure that you say yes, I use Ubuntu on the desktop, and then that sort of branches out into, well, which ones do you use? That kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
that was a bit of an interesting one when I did that, because I use Ubuntu in a couple different contexts. I use Kubuntu at home on my main laptop and my desktop, and that's the interim releases that I utilize. But at work, I'm strictly on the LTS using GNOME, and there's some issues I've had with the LTS that have already been resolved. So a lot of my feedback kind of related to, can we get some of these bug fixes backported to the LTS releases? Because there's one that actually hits me like 4 or 5 times a day when it comes to like calendar notifications and GNOME Shell just locking up on 1804. That's since been resolved in GNOME.
Well, and keep in mind too, 1804 will persist beyond this LTS release. So that seems like something they'd want to fix. So hopefully they take that seriously.
So to be clear, they want you to do the survey regardless of what Ubuntu flavor you use.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. If you use Ubuntu, any of the variants, any of the flavors that are supported by Canonical, so any of the official flavors, they, Kubuntu, Mate, Budgie, Studio. I don't know if I'm forgetting any.
Yeah.
But so yeah, any of those they want you to give feedback on. And so someone mentioned Kubuntu and something I'm excited for. So the 5.18 Plasma LTS release will be part of the 2004 release. And so they're adding, Plasma is great because they're continuously developing things and they're always adding things. If you follow, I think it's Nate Graham, his week in KDE, he posts all of the minutia of the things they're working on, and some of it's big sizzle features and some of it's just little fixes, but it's always something. There's so much that happens.
The first thing I look forward to every Sunday.
and so if you go back and you look, the last 3 weeks have been specifically about things that are going to be in 5.18, and they've done some cool things like GTK GNOME maps with the client-side decorations look nice.
That is one thing I am so looking forward to, is finally getting those header bars fixed under K1.
Yeah, definitely. And they look great. They look like native applications and everything works right. Emoticon support. There's just so many things in there that it's impossible to sort of articulate. But if you have any interest in Plasma and you haven't looked, it's pointieststick.com, and that's his blog. And so I'm really looking forward to the technical base of 2004 on any of the flavors because of the NVIDIA drivers, because of the kernel, because of the newer packages. ZFS, yeah, exactly. There's all kinds of really cool things. And
do we know if they're going to go ZFS yet still, though? Because I know they said it's experimental.
Not default, I imagine, but the support's going to be improved in 2004.
So I've just put a link in for the survey.
Very nice.
But it's a Ubuntu survey by Rhys Davis. But when you click the link, it times out. So I think it's getting hammered. So you might want to leave it a while.
And I noticed we got joined by an Alan Pope.
Yeah, he's trying to get all these bits and pieces working at the moment.
Yep.
So yeah, just to finish up on that, I'm just excited because not only does that mean that all the flavors benefit from that base, but then downstream, all of the Zorins and Mints and all of these, Peppermints, everybody who bases their system on LTS, I can't really use any of them right now. They just don't work very well on this laptop and some of my other hardware. But when they're all based on 20, like later next year, it's going to be amazing because everything's going to work.
Even with the HWE enabled, Eric.
Yeah, believe it or not, Zeb, it's not great.
Yeah, I am so looking forward to 2004, regardless of the flavor, because it just feels like the last 2 years, things have just moved at a rapid pace. GNOME has improved drastically. Plasma has seen a lot of improvements. Mate, Budgie, just across the board.
Yeah, we are in a really good place right now, dude, for Linux. I'm sorry, all the way around. Whatever section you look at, whether it be innovation or whether that be beautiful desktops or whether that be just functionality or gaming, every aspect of it, we are just in a great time.
Yeah, well, that's the reason why I always upgraded my Ubuntu and never stayed on LTS, was because of all the problems and because they don't fix the bugs in the desktop. They just
they don't fix them quick enough for your liking. They fix them in the next release, but the whole point of an LTS is you have a stable base that once they get it up and running and working, doesn't move.
Right.
And then if you want the moving stuff, then they'll move on. But it's not one of these things where you're going to constantly get, unless it's an absolute major bug. And then I'm sure Alan will jump in a minute and say, yes, they fix it. But the whole point is it's meant to be stable. It's meant to be there, and you know it's going to be there the whole time, and not suddenly have to deal with a new driver for this and a new driver for that and a new application here and a new application there. If you want those, you can get around them. Just download the latest dev or go and get an app image, or God forbid, go and install a snap.
Right. I just run into an issue at work. I'm running the LTS, regular Ubuntu, GNOME Shell, and I have an issue with certain notifications, especially coming from Evolution. When I get those calendar notifications, and at work, I get them all throughout the day. My GNOME Shell just locks up. And I've looked this up. The issue has been resolved on the GNOME side and is in the fixes and newer releases of GNOME, but I don't think it's been pushed back to 3.28 or the Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. And this hits me multiple times a day.
So we're going to try an experiment this week. We're going to keep Popey muted the whole time. Only, yes, facial expressions. That's the only thing he can do. He's going to be like our living emoticon for this session.
Is this actually tap, tap, tap? Is this thing
Yes,
working?
it's working.
There you go.
Yeah.
You sound perfect, dude.
How is everyone?
Hello.
Yeah, good.
Hello.
Really good.
Good.
I've actually just noticed, Alan, for the first time ever, you've got some of these like squishy foam pads behind you, haven't you?
Yeah, they've only been there for about 6 months.
Yeah, and that's same as really. Wow.
Different angles there.
I'm just so enamored at looking at your face and not what's behind you. But I actually listened to a guy called the Booth Junkie.
Yes, he's very good.
He is superb, and I was absolutely gutted the other day because he said you might as well stick wallpaper up than these padded foams because they do absolutely nothing.
They're just for
to
looks,
the sound
dude.
in a room.
They're just for looks.
You know, the one thing I've heard that is, so behind you, that's true. But what I've heard is if you have them in front of you, that it actually it deadens the sound coming back to the mic.
Yeah, I have them right in front of me.
Yeah.
I have them all round, but not according to the Booth Junkie. Yeah.
There's no question that they do something when they're set up right. Like something. They don't do a whole lot, but they do something. Like if you take a completely empty room and you put these up in front of you, they will deaden some of that echo. But in the back of you, they're just for looks.
Oh, I'll tell you what, then we need to get Colin to try that because he's normally in quite an echoey room. And
he just needs to bring that mattress back, dude.
I was going to say, do you know the one time he wasn't echoing when he had that flaming great mattress behind him?
Yeah.
Then he had great sounds.
Well, let's not forget also that he had his mic backwards for about.
He did. He did. Gotta say, he did.
Bless him. We've all done that. We have all done that, I'm sure.
Cardioid pattern? What's that?
Zeb, I didn't ever do that.
No.
Well, it's easy to do on especially the Blue Yetis because unless you're really looking at it, you can actually get that back, which I have a friend who did that once.
And the other thing is as well, 9 times out of 10, when people have a microphone, it's odds to have it talking sideways. Everybody thinks that you need to talk into it like this because there's like a speaker shell there, but it isn't that at all. So unless you've got a microphone like, you know, Robin and Distro Hop and the like, and Tony's got one, unless you've got one of those mics, it's not obvious where you chat into.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know how to use side register mics too well.
Yep.
Well, Jill, you have a dynamic mic, right? Because
correct.
Yeah, and I do too.
Yeah.
I had terrible luck with the condenser mics. They just pick up everything, you know.
Yeah, they do. They also have a tendency to be really bassy, which can be annoying. So you have to adjust them. But you know, there's advantages and disadvantages to both types of mics. With dynamic mics, it takes a lot more gain to power them because they are mechanical. But they give a more natural sound, and that's why we used them at radio stations and whatnot. And I was on a condenser for a while, and Ben's like, "I want you back on a dynamic."
And also with those phantom powers, don't you have to worry about any like latent background hum that's sitting there all the time?
Exactly.
If they're the wrong one type thing, yeah.
And that's the disadvantage to the condenser, is it picks up everything, whereas a dynamic, you can focus it really nice so you don't pick up the surrounding area. But they're a little trickier to adjust.
I've just got a plain old USB because I don't want all of those XLR mics and then the power supply and the Scarlett 212 next to it, and then you end up looking like DistroTube with £1,000 worth of sort of like equalizer bits that he's got next to him. That is astonishing.
I mean, I use a $30 mic right now, and literally when I opened up the box, it had a tape on it. It said, "Speaking to this side."
Nice.
Oh, yeah, good.
That's when you know there's a problem.
Yeah, well, actually, I've had no problems with it, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. All right, Alan, you just started this whole 8-bit thing. What is this going on here, dude?
Yay!
Talk to us about this.
I missed it.
I missed it too. I'm going to watch it today.
We was just watching it over dinner.
Oh.
Oh, good. The thing, it started, if you go to 8bitverses.com, there's the backstory is there, but the brief version is we were talking about in one of the Telegram channels, talking about playing 8-bit video games, and Martin claimed that one particular computer was better, and I said, no, the other computer is better. And this is an argument that's been raging for 30 years because
yes,
these are computers from our childhood.
Yes.
And so we said, hey, why don't we just play both games online, like the same game on both platforms, and see which one's best? And one of our friends was like, I'd watch that. So we thought, oh, okay, if someone would watch it, then we'll do it. And so we started last night with a couple of games on the Spectrum and the Commodore 64, and yeah, it was good fun, and we've got loads more lined up.
I think it's astonishing that you can take a Commodore 64 and a ZX Spectrum and stream them. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So from that first episode, did you find out which one was better?
It's still not quite resolved fully.
Okay.
So, afterwards, Martin did concede in a private channel, unfortunately, did concede that maybe he was wrong about some of the
That's
things.
funny.
So
he said that. He said exactly the same thing to me in a Telegram chat, that you conceded after the broadcast and that you thought that,
not at all. The interesting thing is that Martin wrote a bit of software because what we wanted to do was recreate the experience of having you going around to a friend's house, putting a tape in, loading the tape, and then sitting next to each other, and one of you's playing and the other one's watching, and the other one might be like I don't know, have the cassette and sitting there reading the instructions while you're playing, that kind of thing. And we wanted to recreate that, but to do that, like when you're in the same room, you could both see what's on the screen at the same time. And we wanted to be able to have, given we're not in the same room, we're 40 miles apart. So Martin wrote this thing that streams the game from me to him or from him to me, whichever way we want to do it, in a really low latency. So when he dies on screen and I react, I'm reacting like immediately, and there's not like a long delay or anything like that. So I don't have to watch the stream. I get my own personal stream that is like within half a second latency of what he's seeing.
Wow. That's clever.
It's a very complicated setup from what he was talking about.
Ludicrous.
So do we get to see that in the next version of Mate?
It's shell script. It's on GitHub. We put it all on GitHub, and I think if you look on Twitter, it's really straightforward. Actually, there's a script in there that installs all the emulators and sets it all up, and then there's another script that you run, and then you click on the emulator window, and it just starts sending that emulator window to the other person, and they run a script at their end, and they just receive it in a window, and it's really good. Yeah.
Superb. And Temp Core has just written in chat, "You died, my turn. No, give me the controller."
that we do miss, but we're working on a way to do that as well, so that I can like grab my joystick, and because I'm actually using a original I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Original joystick.
Wow.
Nice.
9-pin D-type connector on it.
Good
and
grief.
connect through a USB adapter, and yeah. And for games that require a keyboard, I have a Spectrum keyboard, so I can play on the original Spectrum keyboard.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You've
actually.
aroused his geekiness.
You could probably convert that into a Bluetooth keyboard.
You could.
It actually technically is a Bluetooth keyboard.
I love it. Well,
so more of that.
I look forward to that, man. I look forward to watching
were you
that.
both playing the same game but on different equipment?
So the idea was for this one, we would both choose a game, and I chose Manic Miner and he chose Bruce Lee, and I would have to play it on his system. So I was a Spectrum owner, and I had to play the Commodore version, and then he had to play the Spectrum version of the games that I chose. So we're both like playing something we're not familiar with, and that was part of it, was like using something you're not familiar with. But that's just one idea. We had other
one
ideas
aspect of it,
yeah, for doing like a particular genre of games, like let's do shoot 'em ups, or let's do sports games, or whatever.
So after about 10 sessions of this, we might find out who's the better old-fashioned gamer.
It's been 30 years and we haven't figured it out yet, so I'm not sure we will get a proper answer. Don't hold your hopes up.
Well, speaking of games, Ballistic Overkill, they decided they're not going to support it anymore. What is going on?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, I get it. I get it that it's takes a lot of money, a lot of effort to support these games, but man, that was such a good game to be able to give to people who like are new to Linux and say, hey, you could just get in this shooter and it runs natively on Linux. I'm just like shocked, dude.
Did I read something though that you can still buy the game for $5, but you'll have to run it on your own server or run it on one of the community servers?
On the community server, not on the community. Yeah, it's a community-run servers now. It's not officially supported anymore. So
not sufficiently supported, and there'll be no more updates and no more additions, unless is it something that people used to be able to create community mods for and enhancements? Do you think someone might pick it up? Because it was a very popular game.
I don't know, man. Anybody else have any feedback on that?
This is the first I've heard of this.
So Adam,
oh wow,
what's chatting? Adam's chatting.
Ballistic Overkill, the people who run it are having to just drop it. They can't afford to keep it going anymore. They're not making enough money out of it. So they're not taking it away. And anybody who bought the game from November the 1st to now will get an immediate refund. Other than that, if you've got a community server up and running somewhere, they said something about they will honor helping something or other, but they're just not going to do it themselves anymore.
That's a shame.
Adam was just telling me too that there was a big problem with cheating, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was an issue.
Well, that's an ongoing thing in any
Yeah,
I was going to say.
I take offense to that, Zeb. But no, any kind of like FPS shooter, you're going to have that. But that to me is something you would expect them to know about going in. But I don't know. I really did appreciate.
One of the problems. So that's why those games aren't on Linux, though, is because they can't enforce the anti-cheat stuff, and so it's actually pretty easy for people to cheat using the Linux client. So.
Yeah, that's unfortunately I have to keep a Windows partition on my mainline computer because some of the games I play I can't run in Linux because of the anti-cheats. So.
Yep. Well, it's a sad day in Mudville for anybody who liked Ballistic Overkill.
Can I take issue with something? It's a nitpick, but you said I have to keep a Windows partition around, right? Well, nobody has a gun to your head. Nobody is forcing you to have Windows on your system.
That's correct, Alan. That is correct. But if I want to play those games, I'm required to have one. I don't have to. You're right.
You choose to have a Windows
one. Wait. Now, if he wants to play the games that he spent hundreds of dollars on this whole lifetime, yes, he needs to. Yes.
Yes.
Yep. And if I want to continue to play the hundreds of pounds of Spectrum games that I bought many years ago, then I would need hardware or emulator or something, and that is a choice that I would make. I could get rid of all of this.
You could,
but it's a choice that I've made.
Or you could just start 8-bit, and then you'd be fine.
Or find some reason to carry on playing them. Yeah.
But what's the point you're trying to make then?
The point I'm making is, I'll give you another example. On a Linux user group mailing list about 10 years ago, and this is why it stuck with me. I said something like, I have to use Windows at work. And someone pounced on me on the mailing list and said, no, you don't. You're not forced to. Nobody's holding a gun to your head and making you work there. You live in a Western country. You could choose to work somewhere else. You are choosing to work there. And the fact that you run Windows, yes, that's your employer's choice in this particular case, but you are not forced to run Windows. And that kind of stuck. And I thought, what a horrible thing to say to me. How dare you? You don't know my situation. And then I sat back and thought, well, he's absolutely right. Like there's nothing forcing me working for that company. I could choose to work somewhere else. And actually, later I did. And now I work for an open source company and I don't have to run Windows for my job.
Excellent.
So I think it's one of those.
The vast majority of people do have to use Windows.
No, they don't have to. So
you tell me where you're going to get 10 million people employed using Ubuntu.
I'm not. I'm just saying individuals who claim that they are having to use Windows, maybe they want to choose a different choice of words.
Tony?
I was going to say, if you work in the public sector, I worked in the NHS for 25 years, you have to use Windows. You haven't got a choice.
You didn't. So, nobody held a gun to your head and made you work for the NHS, is my point.
Yeah, but that was my career. I worked in public services.
All right.
That was what I was trained to do.
You could have worked somewhere else.
and that somewhere else would have used Windows. There are very few organizations out there that there's not enough organizations out there for everybody to make the choice not to use Windows at work. I understand the sentiment you're coming from, but in reality,
I think it's a very defeatist attitude to say it's not possible for me to solve this problem when you are the master of your own destiny. You are the person who can change your future. And to say I have to use this operating system, I think is just not right.
Well, I have to disagree.
It worked out for you, Alan, but it won't work out for millions of others.
I have to say that, Zeb, I think you're right, that in reality, there is not enough opportunities for people, for all of us to say, let's work for an open source company so I can choose what operating system I want to
You don't have to work for an open source company. There are plenty of people who don't work for open source companies who just don't use Linux, don't use Windows on their main machine. I just happen to have gone like feet first.
What do you think, Alan, is the percentage of workplaces that use Windows versus use Linux?
Oh, it's tremendously high. Most companies, I would think.
I would say 99% probably of companies use Windows.
I don't have data to
definitely over 90%.
Yeah, very high. Yeah, very high.
So,
by the way, Alan is absolutely correct about choice. He chose to use the Spectrum. I chose to use the mighty Auric. Best keyboard ever.
Oh man, what have I started?
There we go.
Unfortunately, I can't. This still works. It plugs in and you can do the zap and ping and all that stuff. But I've no monitor for it now. I have no TV.
So I do feel fortunate that within my position at Amazon that I have a choice to use the Ubuntu LTS over Windows.
So we should all work for Amazon? Is that what you're saying?
I'm pretty sure he's certainly not saying don't work for Amazon, is he?
in
Not
most
live
cases,
on a YouTube stream, anyway. Yeah.
in most cases with me, because a lot of what I do is browser based, and I can access it on any device from anywhere. I'm quite happy to be when I'm working from home to be on an Ubuntu or Manjaro distro, and it works perfectly, no problems at all. And the only issues that I get is sometimes when I hit security issues where I've got to do something with Office 365. Apart from that, I can do my entire day job from home on Linux.
Lovely.
That would be awesome.
It is good. I spend 4 days a week at home, but I'm on Windows because that's what the company chooses to use. So, and yes, it's my choice to work for them.
Nice. See, we're getting there. We're getting there.
I still think that statement doesn't hold true for every single person in the UK. It's very, very difficult to follow your dream.
Okay, compare it to the statement that I have to drive a car, like I have to drive to work, right?
You don't at all. Yeah.
For some people, right?
Well, yeah, some people you do have to.
It may be possible for you to use public transport. It may be possible to use a bicycle. It may be possible to work from home. There are choices people make in their life, and like it's no different than the question of I have to buy bananas in a plastic bag. No, you don't. It's possible to buy bananas like that don't have plastic wrapping, that aren't harming the environment with their packaging. It is possible. You might have to go out of your way and change some things in your life. But as they say, if you want to change some things in your life, you have to change some things in your life.
So if you want to, if you want to switch jobs, you might have to eat bananas for the rest of your life. But at least you'll have a choice. Yannick, how is it in your area, dude?
I think it's quite the same as in the UK. Most people use Windows. I am fortunate enough to be using both. Well, it's not really Linux; it's FreeBSD, but it's close enough.
It's not Windows. Well done.
It's not Windows. Yeah,
it's as close enough.
Yeah, it's close enough. So, yeah, I'm fortunate enough to work with both systems. But I think to come back on the subject, you said that it's not possible for people to choose not to use Windows. I think it is. It's just not practical, and sometimes you just can't do it just like that. But
it's
yes,
hard.
but the possibility is there. It's true that you don't have to work for your current employer. It's true that you don't have to use Windows, but it is very, very hard. So you guys, you're all right, actually.
There are some people who don't like the activities of certain large companies. Yay, bananas!
Is that all you have to eat, Tony? Tell me, is that all you have to eat?
Nestle, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, right?
Tony, tape it to a wall, you make a fortune.
Get the gaffer tape out, Tony.
Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
There are people who don't like the business activities of Procter & Gamble, Unilever and Nestle and Coca-Cola and PepsiCo and Anheuser-Busch, with like half a dozen companies that sell basically all of the products you buy in the supermarket. And if you really didn't like their business practices and you wanted to avoid, it is possible to avoid all of those companies, but there is so much you can no longer buy, like as a result. And so it's just decisions that you make in life. And if you're willing to continue to support that company and continue to buy that product, then that's on you. It's not on anyone else.
Yeah, there's always choices to be made, and we all have our level of comfortability that we're willing to do. It's the same way with security. We all have our level of what we're willing to do and what we're not willing to do. So yeah, it's a choice.
Rocco, I've got a serious question.
But if you don't work for that employer, you could also go hungry and not have a roof over your head as well. So there are choices you make, but it's not necessarily a practical choice to make. So I would say I agree with both of you. But sometimes in order to have a roof over your head, you have to do what your employer tells you. That's just the way it is. And if you don't like it, yeah, you can go find another job. But quitting your job might not be a very, very practical option at that moment in time.
On that note, serious question, and I've not used it myself. That's why I'm asking. For those that do use Windows at work, and I use 8.1, so this question is not valid to me, but if you're on Windows 10, you have the possibility of using Windows Subsystem for Linux, WSL. Has anyone used it, and what's the recommendations?
So my brief experience with it before I switched to using Ubuntu at work is I ended up using the Windows Subsystem for Linux as an over-glorified SSH client. It's like that was before Windows actually added the SSH client into the command prompt.
I have not used it, so I don't know.
I use it at school, but I just use it because I'm used to Linux. Otherwise, I can use CMD or PowerShell on Windows since I use Windows 10. Or I feel forced to use it because otherwise I cannot actually complete schooling because we need to use Word and Excel for some weird reason.
So I actually have a good question. Since the Windows Subsystem for Linux 2 is going to actually be relying on a virtualized kernel, would that work better for being able to, let's say, push custom images to certain Android devices?
Maybe, possibly. I'm not sure because I don't know how it will be dealing with the device handling, since it is a quite minimal virtual machine, and I'm not so sure it will actually. I know you won't be able to assign a device specifically to that machine because everything is done in system, but you possibly will have access to all the devices that are connected to your machine directly. But I'm not exactly sure.
Because I think that could be a use case if it would work well with that for my coworkers, because a lot of the scripts are based around Ubuntu workstations that we already have. So
I think WSL is targeted to a very specific type of user, really developers, not like general purpose person who has to run Microsoft Office. It's more for someone who is developing applications and deploying them into a cloud or something like that, and they want familiar tools on Windows that they have on Linux. It's more for those kind of people.
Okay.
Very nice. What's next? Who's got something they want to bring up? Tony?
Yeah, it was just something that happened to me today. I was trying to install the current distro into VirtualBox, and I realized the laptop I was trying to install it on didn't have VirtualBox installed. Went and downloaded the deb, tried to install it, and it wouldn't install. So I thought I couldn't work out what was wrong. It kept saying that it wasn't connected to the internet. There was a dependency it needed to download, but it was connected to the internet. Anyway, I realized there was quite a few updates needed doing. Did the updates, the deb installed perfectly. So just as a matter of course, if there's anyone out there having problems with anything on their system and they've not updated for a while, it might be a good idea to try doing the updates.
And that's another good reason to have automatic updates switched on.
Yeah.
I'm
a big supporter of automatic updates. Personally, especially since I administer a bunch of computers for family members and normal users, I do see stuff like automatic updates a must-have because, let's say on Windows, even with automatic updates, you can see people still somehow overriding the system and getting 5, 6, even a year without an update. And
wow, I thought that wasn't possible now on Windows.
Somehow people do it.
So
okay, I can do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, within an organization, you could definitely create policies surrounding updates and set it where if these updates are not installed by X date, the machine gets isolated from any relevant networks.
That's what happens at work
useless.
here. Yeah, I mean, although a lot of the workforce works from home, we have to go in to work a minimum of a month and leave our devices connected to the network for half a day so that it can do all the updates. If you fail to do that, you'll log on one day and it will say your device is no longer recognized for the network. Please visit an office.
But that's from a standpoint of an organization managing that and enforcing that policy. What I don't like is when Microsoft pushes certain updates, and next thing I know, certain things that certain group policies that are set end up being broken. Like Cortana being disabled for privacy reasons, especially since, especially if it's within an organization of a competing product. It's like, no, we don't want this enabled. Don't try to push this change to group policy that we set.
But then surely that's down to your IT department to check whether that update's going to allow it or not. And are you saying that on an enterprise version you can't stop it?
We can't.
I've seen enterprise machines running Windows 10 Enterprise that have ended up with Candy Crush or having Cortana re-enabled or having search results go back out to the internet. Even with the strict group policy set, this stuff is still bypassing our own updates. Like it's
because this is really weird.
Microsoft actually does that on purpose because all those are tied to the telemetry service and they want to be able to track you. So when it turns on telemetry, it turns on everything else as well.
It's ridiculous that Microsoft does these to enterprise organizations because they could potentially be putting these organizations in trouble with regulations like HIPAA laws.
Well, I don't know how your IT department is working then, because I'm part of the testing team. I'm the first person who gets to test the update process. And not once have I ever had Cortana re-enabled, any games on my laptop, because our IT department manages all of that.
I mean,
they do their testing first, and then they literally strip out the rubbish they don't want, and then just push it through to the machines.
Right,
So
and I'm sure that's what our organizations do. And granted, I've not seen this in a couple of years. Microsoft perhaps has gotten better about not trying to push this
and or your
stuff
IT department has got better as well. Yeah, because I've no doubt they do it. I've no doubt they do it, but they've probably got a lot better and a lot more efficient.
But on that note, even with automatic updates, even for a regular user, Microsoft should be respecting user settings and not trying to reset
When
stuff.
have they ever respected anything? How many horror stories have you heard where you've updated Windows and your Linux distro's gone? Because they've thought, oh, what's this? Let's wipe that partition out. Again, I've personally never had it.
Never had any of that. I got to say that either I'm extremely lucky and
so am I, but there are lots of people who have had it happen to them.
That's why the only Windows installation I have is sitting on an SSD that I just pop into the machine the 2 times a year I need it.
Big Pod, your mic is slightly low, just so you know.
I can't do about it because I'm still learning how this mic works.
Okay,
so,
that's fine. Just letting you know.
I have Windows on my machine. I use it daily for school. And I got to say, after I removed Candy Crush, I don't know how many months ago, I haven't yet received it. And I do updates religiously. Every time they come, I will update. I don't have any group policy set up, nothing like that, because I have home version on the laptop. So
and perhaps Microsoft has gotten better about it.
I don't remember any, from the time I had Windows 10 that I ever got Cortana or Candy Crush reinstalled.
Perhaps maybe we should probably steer the conversation back to Linux somehow.
That would be a good decision, yes.
It's Big Daddy Windows.
Instead of talking about Windows and policy and all this other stuff. Jill, have you tried Elementary out?
Yes. So I really because I'm not going to be in the next biddle.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes. So one thing I really appreciate about Elementary is the ISO is small. It's under 2 gigs, which is really good, obviously, for the new users that they are targeting. So that is really nice. And I think it's really, really also great for new users, so they learn how the software packages work and all of the goodies that come with Linux. So even though it's beautiful, it's set up for the beginner user, it has the advantage that it's kind of helping teach people too how to install from an app store and whatnot. Yep. So I was really appreciative of that. And actually I tested it on an old ThinkPad and a new computer, and it ran pretty well. It's, of course, based off GNOME, but Pantheon, but it ran really nice on an old ThinkPad. So I was really impressed by that because I hadn't run it in probably about a year. So that was really nice. And it did have a few issues. I think everyone's had.
Yeah.
It does have a few issues.
Yeah.
Like 2 systems I installed it on, it would not shut down properly. So, I just held the power button down.
Yeah,
and it
that
would
is
shut
one
down.
issue where it hangs on shutting down. Yes.
Where it hangs. So, but other than that, I was really happy with it. It's got the, Mac OS 10 feel, of course. And but I think they're doing Cassidy James and Daniel are doing a great job on that distro. It's really really come a long way. And it the fact that you can develop on it, and they've created a whole platform of development that's really beautiful.
And I actually got told off on DL this week for calling it the Marmite distro. You either love it or hate it.
Surely that's true of all Linux distros.
It is.
Yeah, but I think even more so with Elementary. You can either use it or you can't. And I agree with you. Straight out of the box, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
And to some respects, so is Ubuntu. I just can't use it. Sorry, it just doesn't hit my workflow.
Can I ask a question of everyone who keeps saying this, because it is literally I just keep hearing it. Can someone quantify for me one thing why they think it's beautiful? Just tell me any, and I'm not trying to be combative or confrontational. Everybody says it and nobody says, here's why.
Here's why. It looks beautiful because of the whole concept of everything included in the desktop, the way it's set up. And you can't pick out just one thing because some distros have that one thing. This has everything to make it look beautiful in one package. So you have you have Plank installed, but Plank is set up in a way that makes it look good rather than the default Plank when you install it, and you get something that doesn't look quite good. You have the transparent panel, which is something that I think looks beautiful. You can get that in other distros, but again, this is the overall feel of everything put together. Their interface is clean. Their file manager, it's a clean look. It's minimalistic, and it looks, I would say, in the same way that a modern room, where it's slick design and no sharp corners, that I don't know, I can't sit there and give you a picture of, but you know what I'm talking about. That modern room has that look to it. Elementary has that same
that
feel
60s
to it.
modern look.
Yeah.
And using the same analogy, when you open up a chest of drawers, those drawers will be the soft closing ones. Yeah, they won't be the ones that when you walk away, you slam it shut and you hear bang in the background.
Right.
Every app that you open that was being created by Elementary for Elementary has a wonderful look and feel about it. It all just matches, whether you like that or not. And to a certain degree,
it's all consistent throughout the whole distro.
Yeah.
So that's
visual consistency is key.
Yeah, Eric, I think the word for it is it's unified. It has a unified environment.
It's even more beautiful than a Mac, actually.
Yeah.
Some apps on
that's
Mac.
if you find the Mac beautiful. See, that's the thing this is the reason I'm asking the question, is because all of this is so subjective. The consistency I will give you,
but it's the consistency.
Consistency I give you. Consistency doesn't matter. Appearance has nothing to do with consistency. It's a part of it.
Correct.
But having consistency throughout everything, that I agree with.
I think it's a big part, actually.
Well, no, I'm saying the specific colors, the specific.
Oh, well, yeah. But if you notice, their color palette is kind of not bland, but it's
not dark.
Yeah,
it's not dark either.
Dark option.
It's not dark either.
It's shocking.
I did notice that some of the apps were dark and some of the apps weren't, which kind of is confusing a little bit.
Well,
that does break the consistency a little bit.
I think to be fair, for a long time, they were very resistant to dark themes, and they were very resistant to having alternate themes. And Cassidy had a bit of an epiphany in the last year, having had lengthy conversations with upstream GNOME theme developers and people who've highlighted to him the reason why they want a dark theme is not just because dark themes look cool, but there are genuine accessibility reasons why people may want a dark theme. And I think that, I don't think I'm speaking for him because he's said this as much as this. I think that was a turning point for him when he realized, okay, yes, we do need to do this. It was, they weren't I mean, the problem is it's a lot more work to do to have two themes because you've got to test everything twice, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's reasonable. It's good.
But that's why it looks like I wear sunglasses. They're not sunglasses. These are tinted reading glasses so that the glare doesn't affect my eyes.
Right.
Yeah, and I know Cassidy's been working on that dark theme for a while. He talked about it a few weeks ago on Linux Unplugged, and how he was really working hard to integrate that nicely.
So if you noticed, two of the apps that are dark themed are the video app and the images. That's because of color, and the color looks better if the background is black on those different programs.
The terminal too, because a black terminal is always cool.
So I've had Telemetry installed on my ThinkPad. I got a ping from Cassidy to test the ISO before it went live, and so I've had that on there for a little while now, and yeah, it's very nice. It's stayed on there, but it's not my forever distro, but I like it, and there are some little choices that they've made that you can clearly see they've thought very well a lot about, and little things like I like that when you're typing your password in a terminal or doing sudo, it echoes little stars to the screen. I realize I'm typing in the right place and my key presses aren't going in another window. I like that when you run a long-running command and alt-tab away, you get a notification when your long-running command is finished. Stuff like that. Yeah, I've asked the Ubuntu desktop team, can we please have that in Ubuntu, because I really like that. Maybe that'll happen in 2004. I don't know, but I think that's the thing. It's like Elementary has got the opposite of the paper cut problem. They've identified all these little paper cuts and they fix them, and they fix them in a really elegant way. I think elegance is probably the way I describe it.
Yes, absolutely perfect term for that.
Yes, but for the wrong user, those paper cuts are fixed, but now they have knife cuts that you have to overcome. And I just couldn't.
Eric,
I worked very hard with Shikin in chat today to try and get it fixed. And the ultimate, I've just had enough. Even their display manager would not set my screen resolutions, and I've put a bug fix request on their, what is it, the website that they use?
The issue tracker.
Yeah, but it's not an issue tracker, is it? It's like a forum, but not a forum. Stack Exchange. Yeah. So I'm waiting for an answer to see if somebody can explain to me why they can't even set 3 monitors. So
I need to test that
for me was the final. Have you got 3 monitors then, Jill?
Yeah, I've got 2 systems with 3 monitors. This one right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know whether it was because NVIDIA drive or NVIDIA settings had already set. And that's the other thing that it's not doing. I reboot, and both these outside monitors go back to 4K, whereas I've decided now that I want all of them 1440p. And I have to go back in every time and reset NVIDIA. But I thought before I do that this time, I'll just use a display setting. Wouldn't even touch it. So
Oh, okay.
Something odd happened.
Yeah, I'll have to test it then, because I know sometimes there are like GNOME and whatnot will override the NVIDIA settings at times. And
the whole notification area thing, why they got rid of that, I don't know, because how do I, and until I learned you can do a control Q, how do you close down Telegram? By right mouse clicking the icon and going quit. But apparently you can just click in there and go control Q. Thank you, I've now learned something. Why are they the only one where you install Firefox, or if Firefox is there, where you install Firefox and right mouse click has a bug in it, but no other Ubuntu has a bug. And the bug, Alan, is if you right mouse click and you let go of the right mouse click to view the menu, it automatically clicks the item that you happen to be hovering over.
Oh, I have seen that. I've seen that.
And there's a
in other
known
distros.
fix. Yeah. But it only ever happens to me in Elementary, not in any other Ubuntu.
None of this,
so what have they done to
But to be fair, on my Ubuntu 1910 behind me, it's got an NVIDIA GPU, and I have a monitor attached to it, which is a 1080p panel, and it won't go any higher than 1600 by 900. And I've got no idea why. The machine next to it, running Ubuntu Mate, can drive it perfectly fine. There are these weird cases where some monitors just don't play nice for some reason, even though two different machines running ostensibly the same software.
Yeah, but they play nice on every single Ubuntu.
Right.
It's just that
and that's
one.
what Elementary is based off of, isn't it? The 1804
from
LTS.
18 months ago, nearly 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I could still load up. I'm still running PEP, which is based upon 1804, and it doesn't. It's
Sure.
video
What I'm getting at
settings
is
can-
that it's one of those quirks that
Oh, yeah,
displays
yeah, yeah.
are one of those things that just
It's computers, and when somebody says to me, "Why does it do that?" I go, "I don't know."
displays on printers. Displays on printers.
I've had many of those moments.
Yes.
It is
Robin?
amazing what a difference that 18 months makes, though, because when I use an LTS, I have a hard time getting it to do what I on newer hardware, on this laptop in particular with the Optimus stuff. And, from 1810, 1904, and now 1910, like everything just works now. And so that's, Alan, before you got here, I was saying how excited I am for the 2004 LTS, because it's going to have all of this stuff
All
baked
those
into
fixes.
it. Yeah.
So kind of speaking on that note, I will reveal the thing that kind of really broke it for me is when I break away from that Elementary ecosystem and want to use some of the applications that I use everywhere else, like Mumble and Quassel. If I use the dead packages, they default to Adwaita and not the Elementary theme. And if I use the Flatpak, they'll want to use this Fusion theme that doesn't kind of fit in at all. So I'm having to choose between an out-of-date package that will use Adwaita, which kind of fits in fine, or the Flatpak for the newer version that's not fitting in at all. And that's where it kind of breaks for me, where if I'm using Plasma or if I'm using just regular GNOME shell, I can force those applications to fit in with the styling that I want it to fit in with.
But don't universal universal images suffer that anyway? App images will do their own thing. Snaps will do their own thing. Flatpaks will do their own thing. They're all still trying to work on theming at the moment, aren't they?
But even the dead packages were not using the Elementary theme. They were using Adwaita.
Right.
And because there's really kind of no cute equivalent. And Elementary's ecosystem, it's a great ecosystem, but there is a wider Linux application ecosystem that I want to take advantage of. And if that's not fitting in, then that kind of kills the experience for me.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest issues with me too, especially when I go install something like Firefox or LibreOffice. Even I get that warning that pops up in my face all the time. Now you can disable that, but I'm just like, why? These are common Linux applications. Why am I seeing a warning to install one?
And even
the first time I saw that, I thought, oh, that's that dialogue. And then after that, I never saw it again because I just used the terminal to install everything. So
yeah, you can bypass it with the terminal, but
because there's another way to install app than the terminal.
No.
Yeah.
But
it's an APT, but yeah.
Even beyond the Qt applications, even GTK3 applications, which the Elementary theme typically tends to work with, some of the GTK3 Flatpaks that tend to be exclusively Flatpaks, like Fractal, which is a Matrix application, that actually had issues with the Elementary theming.
Well, that's because Flatpak is a containerized system. It doesn't depend on anything outside of the Flatpak system.
But there are ways
That's
to get
not necessarily
theming.
true.
And there is Elementary is packed. The Elementary theme is packaged as a Flatpak. Now, whether it's up to date, that's another question. But
Flatpak
the Elementary theme
actually-
is supported within Flatpak GTK applications, or ought to be, from what I imagine.
Nate.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
We just got done walking around town for a little Christmas village thing going on, so I thought I'd join you.
Okay.
Hi, Nate.
Hey.
So I actually spent a lot of time in Elementary this week, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about it here at the next bit. It doesn't really matter. But I just want to make a statement. The app images will actually respect your theme. That you like, at least some of them will actually respect your theme for whatever you have going. Like there's a application I downloaded called X-Lights. It's actually I think it's GTK2 based. I think because it doesn't quite have that polish of GTK3, and it pulled what my GTK2 theme from my system. So I know that actually does work because I actually built my own GTK2 theme. Not a very good one, but it satisfies what I want.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards flat packs or snaps because I can manage them within.
Oh, here we go with the flat pack versus snaps.
And I was going to say
anyway. Okay, so wait. So let's get it. We are going to do our Elementary conversation later in the next show. I'm trying to give the people that won't be there the opportunity to talk about their experience with it. But go ahead, Nate.
Anyway, I was going to say, this is my log, supplemental as they'd say on Star Trek. I understand their design intent and I appreciate what they're doing, but if I had to choose of any of the Ubuntu flavors, not saying it's a flavor, but from the Ubuntu branches, I would probably take any of the other ones. So.
Okay. Robin, did you want to get in on this?
Hi, everyone, and happy Christmas, everybody. By the way, this is our last of the year. Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. So thanks, Rocco, because obviously I won't be on the later show today, but I just wanted to say, Elementary has always been kind of my go-to distro. I don't know why. I just always still end up there. But I've done a fresh install this week and totally wiped my Windows machine, and I've had no problems at all with drivers picking up my new hardware because I've upgraded my graphics card. So I've now got a 2 gig video card in the machine. The NVIDIA drivers updated without any problems whatsoever. So I'm very, very pleased about that one now. So I've managed to resolve a lot of my screen tear issues with that one. My memory I was having some issues with as well. I whipped out the old 2.4 chips and put in a single 8 gigabyte chip, and no problems at all with that one now. So that's absolutely gorgeous. In terms of Elementary, I've just got to say to anybody that uses this on a desktop, and I had this with Juno, and I will also get in the same with Hera as well. Watch your power settings, because on a laptop, not an issue if you like putting the lid down and you like to put your machine to sleep or put it into suspend mode. But on desktop, if you lock your machine and walk away from it, even though you've got all the power settings set to never, 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 or turn my screen off after 15 minutes, suspend never, or shut me down after 30 minutes of inactivity, say, it shuts down. It puts the machine to sleep. So that's my only one big gripe at the moment that I'm having real big issues with, is trying to resolve the suspend issues, which I'm hopeful that the guys at Elementary will be able to resolve in time for 2004.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you're okay if you use the machine, no problems at all. It's brilliant. I've got no stability issues. It's brilliant. It's when I come to walk away from my machine that I have the issue.
Yeah.
Unless I'm moving that mouse or I'm watching a movie on Netflix or doing something with it, if I walk away from it and put it in lock mode, which is what I can do with other distros, this one, whether I tell the machine to not do it, it just suspends me. And I have to press the power button again to return back to the state that I was in before. So that's my only one gripe with this at the moment.
I had a similar experience with Elementary too, but it was while I was like watching videos on YouTube. I put it on full screen, and every every distro won't suspend, but yet all of a sudden, next thing you know, my computer, when I'm watching something longer than 20 minutes, would just suspend on me. And literally, I would go into the settings and disable it, and it still tries to do it. So I was just like, I think that's a little bug that they have.
Sounds like Nate's got a solution.
Yeah, Nate, go on.
I have a solution, and it's not sarcasm. Okay,
Go ahead.
It is turn on Discord. It somehow wedges a system from going to sleep.
Really?
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
How?
Do the trick.
But I don't know how, but any of my systems that I have, if I want to leave it, if I don't want it to shut itself, like turn off the the screen, go all the power settings, I just turn on Discord, and that kind of wedges all the systems up, because I don't know if it's the media that it's playing. It thinks that it's running. So
Maybe
because
the interesting thing with my system is I turned on caffeine and it still did it. So I mean, I don't know if that would work with my machine or not.
You see, now I couldn't get caffeine to work when I tried.
Oh,
okay. Caffeine doesn't work for me either.
Nah.
Discord is an Electron app, so it has a lot of resources running in the background.
It's just doing all kinds of crazy things in the background. It's just running circles.
Oh, you're talking about an application. I thought you were talking about caffeine. Okay.
If you pour coffee on a keyboard, it solves all your problems.
But Nate, you probably have got a point.
I feel like doing that.
You probably have got a point there, Nate, because in theory, Discord is always listening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an always on app. So yeah, I'm going to give that one a try. Thanks for that suggestion.
So Nate, are you using how did you install Discord?
I use the Snap.
Yeah, there's a Snap. Yeah,
correct answer. So there is an interface that Discord uses, which is called screen inhibit control, and it might be if you disconnect that would stop Discord from holding your machine open. Now I realize that is the entire opposite of what Robin actually wants to achieve here.
But that's good, because that's what I wanted to do. Okay, how do you do that? Let's see.
Snap disconnect.
So you could just create a Snap that does nothing but just connects to this interface, and that would be enough to.
Yeah, maybe. Well, no, because it has to actually want to do it. There has to be an application inside there that actually does it. So I can talk to you on Telegram, Nate, and we'll sort
okay.
You write 3 lines of C++ to actually do that.
So interestingly, some of the old media players, I think even Totem, the way it used to suppress the screensaver when you play a video full screen is it used to inject shift key presses into the keyboard.
You're kidding.
So often to stop the screen, and that was part of the code was like, wow, how do we stop the screensaver kicking in? Well, let's just pretend to press the keys, and that will stop the screensaver.
Oh my gosh!
I remember that. That used to be a big problem. Yeah. I forgot all about it though.
If you're typing something at the same time, then you would have shift.
I wonder
why are my letters capitals?
Capitals, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Tony. Wait, second Tony, are you going to be here tonight as you normally are?
Yes.
All right, so we'll wait for you for tonight. The Bearded Wonder, Tony. Did you want to talk about Elementary?
Yeah, I'll just mention it. I did install it in virtual machine today during the Linux user group, but it installs brilliantly. It's basically Ubuntu under the hood, so it installed no problem. And like I say, my main gripe with it is the fact it's the GNOME 3 desktop environment. I did notice Jill mentioned she thought it was great for new users to Linux. I just thought there was a few applications they could have included in the default distro. There was no Office or word processor or anything.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Firefox.
Yeah. You have to think about what Office suite you want to use.
Yeah, but I just thought even if they'd just put AbiWord in as a light user one, at least you'd have had something to start off with, and then you could have gone in if you wanted the full-blown Office suite like LibreOffice.
AbiWord probably doesn't fit their theme guidelines.
Yeah. And again, Office products are so subjective. And one of the things that they need to try and teach you is, okay, it's missing an Office suite. Open up the App Store and go and install one. I can see why they don't necessarily, because
Yeah.
I guarantee you put LibreOffice and somebody will want OpenOffice. You put
Yes.
OpenOffice, someone will want links to Microsoft Office or Google Docs or something. It's very subjective.
But then if you go and try and install it, you still get that curation warning when it pops up when you try and install LibreOffice or anything else. There's no curated Office suite in the App Store at all.
But the warnings are there to let you know that you're running an application that they, Elementary, don't curate. They don't monitor this for security. They don't monitor it for anything. So, I mean, you can still hit the install anyways button. I don't see that as being a big, huge problem.
Has anyone seen, do they publish what exactly their process is for verification, security, sort of? So they're making pretty bold claims.
Well, they're not really.
It's not
they're
it's
telling
not
the truth, really.
Okay. Go ahead, Alan. Go ahead.
So if you look at it from the Elementary point of view, this makes complete sense, right? They've got a platform where they want to entice developers to create applications and put them in App Center, which goes through the machinery. Someone's typing. Which goes through the machinery of Elementary's build system, builds a package, they can sanity check it and approve it and let it go into the App Center, right? That's what they want. But they know that normal people still want to install other stuff that's outside that, let's say, fenced garden, right? It's not a walled garden because you could knock the fence down and walk through it, right? So people will want to go outside those boundaries. And what they're trying to highlight to people is, if you go outside this boundary, we have no control over what goes on over there because you're effectively going outside the App Center to the Ubuntu repository or some rando FlatHub repo, and we can't help you there.
The Ubuntu repository that the system is built on in the first place.
Yeah. But they decided which packages to include in the ISO. So that
did they vet those packages specifically?
Curation. Well, they would have chosen which packages go in the.
Here's
ISO.
the point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to be a jerk about this.
Twice in one night.
If you tell me that you are guaranteeing your packages as being safe or whatever it is that they're doing, okay,
they didn't say
fine.
That.
Well, then I don't get a warning when I install their applications, do I?
No, because it does. It's what they're saying is these applications we can vouch for because we've seen the source code. We built it on our infrastructure. It was delivered to you, and maybe even if it's a flat pack that we built, it might even be sandboxed, right? So there are some guarantees there that they have done at least some due diligence on those packages.
Okay.
As soon as you go outside that, they can't make any of those.
Well, that's what I was asking though, is what is that due diligence? I mean, does everyone has confidence that that's actually like a thing?
Well, I couldn't tell you exactly what the process is. I don't work on Elementary, but I certainly know that you can't just randomly add a package into App Center. It has to go through a review with Elementary, those devs.
The danger I see happening here, and this is how it comes off to me, is if people say, okay, I can trust everything that Elementary puts out, and heaven forbid something ever gets in there or something happens, I just feel like there's this sort of, they're guaranteeing there's a certain guarantee, like you use these packages and you're good. And I don't even care about the message about, we can't guarantee this. Of course, nobody can. But it's just sort of this, like you said, fenced garden, where if you live in this garden, everything's happy. And if something were to not turn out that way, I'm afraid that maybe they're putting their stuff so much. I don't know the best way to express this. If you understand,
I can see where you're going, and really, I think what I'm trying to say is not. I wouldn't look that deeply into it. It's more they have control over that, and so in the event that they found there was a significant bug in the code editor, for example, and it lost people's code, right? And this is an app that ships in Elementary default package. It's on there by default, and people use it, and it loses data, right? They can push out an update and be in control of that messaging around that thing. They're not dependent upon some rando developer publishing it in Flatpak, or some rando developer putting it in the Snap Store, or waiting a week for a stable release update to land in the Ubuntu repository. They are the masters of their own destiny, I think, is what they're trying to articulate with that. And if you only stick to the packages that are in that area, then you could be confident that they're looking after those things.
I think what's happened to me is that I'm sorry, I one more thing.
Okay.
Just like you were hung up on the you have to use Windows, I'm hung up on there's like 3 or 4 things in the philosophy of Elementary that I just they stick in my craw, and I know it's me being I know it's just me being inflexible, but it is that's how I'm responding to it, and I don't know.
I think the world is big enough that it has room for people who have that fixed idea on what. Well, it's not even fixed. They have very strong opinions on how their distro should be delivered. I think they're doing quite well. You know,
question.
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, okay.
If they've got this fence garden, do they actually tell you that in the App Store? Because I had a look in the App Store just to see what was available for download and install. But I didn't notice anything that says these are the approved packages and these aren't.
Yes,
there is.
There's a line,
right,
and it's not super well, like it's not like in big bold flashing lights and danger, dragons below this line. Like that. It's just this is curated, this is not.
Right.
Okay.
My only issue with the curation warning is I don't think they're clear enough about what they mean by it, because when it pops up and says this has not been curated for security, etc. If they're targeting new users, they may not know what that necessarily means. I think they need to explain that a little bit better. I understand what they're saying. They might say, well, this comes from the Ubuntu repository, so we don't manage that. I think they could word it more like that. I would have less of a problem with it. Now, coming from the FlatHub repository, neither Ubuntu nor Elementary has control of that. I could understand a warning, and a lot of distros do warn you about FlatHub and snaps because it's not coming from them. However, a new user might say that, why I'm trying to install LibreOffice or GIMP or Firefox, and they might just take a look at that and say, what am I installing, a virus or something? Someone might think that. So that is my major issue with the way they've worded it. I think they could word it better and less scary. Just say, no, this isn't coming from Elementary. This is coming from Ubuntu or FlatHub, and instead of wording it like they do.
I'm not convinced that normal people will actually care about that.
Mm-hmm.
We do care because we know what it means, but I can imagine my dad using Elementary, installing an app. He will see this dialog box. He will click OK. And if I ask him what did he say, don't know.
Because that's what they all do on Windows. How many people remember UAC?
Yeah.
Right.
So
do you authorize this app?
Yes. Have to click on.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it's something that we geeks understand and think other people will find that a problem, but I'm not convinced it's going to be a problem.
How come you don't care about that box, Yannick?
Yeah, I do care about that box. I mean, my dad doesn't.
I would challenge anyone actually who complains about that box. I would challenge anyone to come up with a box that big on the screen that fully articulates
all
Alan. Of the things that you want to say about, well, this package came from the Ubuntu archive, which is managed by Canonical. And if you're running this release of Ubuntu, then these are the packages that are maintained by the security team. These others in Universe are not. They're community maintained. You can't fit that in that box.
Well,
nobody would read it if you did.
Or
that last point is correct.
Or they could have that, but then they could have this little thing like a lot of app developers do that says click here
for more information.
How many people do you think would click on that, Alan?
How many people? Well, I know I can know of about 20 people who would, because they're concerned about the security, and they're not even geeks like us.
And I can name 5 million who wouldn't, because they don't care less.
Oh yeah,
including me.
And I get the point. I get the point that is a different. No other distro has that box. Okay, nobody warns you about that, but I do understand why they're doing it, and it may. It's funny. We are the guy, like you guys had just said, we are the guys that would understand that box, and yet we're the more concerned people about that box. The people that wouldn't understand that box are going to just click the red install anyways button.
Yeah.
They're not going to care.
I think we're being I think people who don't like that box maybe fit into one of a couple of pools of people. Maybe they are feeling offended because the Elementary guys are effectively saying all that free software that you've been using for ages, that's rubbish. All of that over there, and all of this stuff that's in our store is great.
I think that's part of it, Alan. Honest,
right?
I really do. I think it's part of it that it's almost like people get offended that. What do you mean your applications are better than these ones that we've been using? And it shouldn't be that way. But I do, man, that is a great point.
And I'm just going to bring something up. Again, we talked about it on DL about Fedora, and there was this huge furore over the fact that they were putting proprietary apps in their software store, and they were sometimes the first app that came up along. You know, you're on Fedora, you can install Spotify, and someone else says, oh, and you can install this, and they were proprietary apps, and the whole FOSS community was going, this is shocking, how dare you. I'll say the same 3 words that I'll say here. Yeah, get over it.
I think the problem there though is you've got to think of your line where you've got Richard Stallman at one end of the line and you've got Tim Cook at Apple on the other end of the line, right? And your software freedom ideals or philosophy, everyone is somewhere on that line roughly, and Fedora users are kind of more towards Richard Stallman, and people who use Ubuntu are probably nearer the middle, more towards the Apple guy. And so when those people who have made a conscious effort to try and keep proprietary software out of free software, and someone comes along and just goes bop and puts it front and center on their system, they're like, what the hell is this? I don't want this. And I also don't want other people to see this, because if I advocate for free software, I don't want it to be, in inverted commas, infected by this stuff that I'm trying to get people off of. The problem there is lots of people still want all that non-free software. People still want to listen to their music on Spotify. They want to play their games on Steam, and they want to chat to their colleagues on Slack. They still want to use that stuff. In inverted commas, going back to our previous conversation, they have to use that software.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what annoys me the most?
Oh, go on.
You're so reasonable. You shoot down my you find a way to make me say, shut up, Zeb. I love it.
The Fedora people are being reasonable because it's their mandate. They're trying to build a free software desktop using fully free software components and to promote the use of free software in the world. And along comes this upstart kind of software delivery system that says, hey, you could deliver all of that free software, plus, by the way, want to buy some dodgy proprietary software, and like shove that on people's faces. They don't like it, and I can understand why.
We're back to SoftMaker Office.
What's Fedora? I mean, Fedora. Go ahead, Alan.
My point with free and proprietary software is, I think people should have the choice to use whatever the heck they want to. If they want to install proprietary, I mean, Zoom, what we're using right now is proprietary, and we choose to use it. And some people can't get their work done without proprietary software. And most of my laptops here, they use a proprietary driver for their Wi-Fi code. So I mean, sometimes I'd choose to use that driver because I wouldn't have internet on these laptops. So, but I don't really care,
but you're
but
clearly not at that end, at Richard Stallman's end. I once at a Linux user group said, I have to have proprietary software because my wireless won't work. And there was a guy there from the Free Software Foundation. And he said, it's okay, Alan, I've got a spare Ethernet cable you can have, and that will solve your problem, right? You don't
It's
need
a
to use
choice.
Wi-Fi then.
You're choosing to use that proprietary software.
Exactly. I am choosing to use that non-free firmware on my wireless card. I could have just bought a cable and that problem would have gone away.
Yeah.
Big Pod, you've been trying to say something for like 10 minutes now. You're muted.
On the point of proprietary versus free software, those people who cry about proprietary software in stores and all that, I would tell them, shut up. If you don't like it, don't use it. That's all it is.
Well,
because, in my opinion, use the tools that make your job easier and that you can actually accomplish your job.
Well, let's make sure we understand the situation very specifically with Fedora.
Yeah.
One of their 4 tenets of the distribution is
I know.
It's know your audience.
Software. Yeah. But then, know your audience.
And
that's our thing.
Yeah.
But, sorry, I've spoken a lot. I'll shut up.
Yeah, I said that at the beginning of the discussion that we had on DL, that Fedora came from that era of you've got, not you've got to, but we are providing you with a distribution that uses free and open source software. If you want your NVIDIA drivers, if you want your proprietary packages, you've got to go through hoops and have the knowledge to get them installed.
Mm-hmm.
I think what the advocates for FOSS were annoyed about was, here's the FOSS Software Center. Hello, Spotify. Would you like to install me? Now, the reason they might be doing that is they might be wanting to make it a bit easier for any Windows or Mac users that come over, so that immediately they can see, oh, I can use Spotify and Fedora. This is good.
Now,
but it upsets the sensibilities of those FOSS people.
Now, I don't know much about the internals of GNOME software, but doesn't it just pick software from within the repos, not necessarily with...
It has a plug-in architecture.
Yeah.
And there's a plug-in for Snapd that'll let it talk to the Snap Store. And there's a plug-in for Flatpak, and the plug-in for Flatpak allows you to enable multiple Flatpak repositories, of which FlatHub is one.
Right, but for showing the featured applications,
well,
once
once you enable it, I think you might have enabled, for example, you might have enabled FlatHub in order to get the GIMP, and then suddenly see Discord or Spotify or something like that. I think that's the objection. Is I went to this store to buy some free software, and I came out with this horrible T-shirt, kind of.
Well, also, GNOME software does display what's ever in the repos, but if you don't have Snap installed inside of it, you won't see snaps at all. But Ubuntu comes with that, and that's how they distribute their proprietary software through snaps. So,
how dare they?
Right, but my kind of question was, GNOME software doesn't really discriminate on what it chooses to feature on the front page when you open it. It just picks a piece of software.
No, it doesn't.
Correct, it does, but I think the developers can mark stuff as more to come up more often than others. And as Alan said, you can actually tell it to go and grab software and display it from a number of places.
So the featured list on Ubuntu in GNOME software, the featured list is maintained by my team. So if you are on Ubuntu and you open GNOME software, you'll see, I can't remember what we've got featured at the top, but there's a selection of like 10 applications in there.
Right.
And it's the same set that you see if you go to snapcraft.io/store. That's the same set. Like we update that every 2 weeks. And part of the reason for doing that is to drive people towards new software, because it turns out people like to try new things. And we also want to raise awareness of software that people may not have heard of. Like, I'm looking for a note-taking application. Like, in the back of my mind, I've got to try and find a note-taking application. They open the App Store and suddenly there's a new note-taking application. We want to get developers' applications in front of users. And I think if you don't have these external repositories like FlatHub and Snap enabled, then the store looks really stale because it only really shows you the same old free software that everybody already knows. Like, that's great, like GIMP.
Right.
But it's the same software. There's no motivation for me to go to the App Store if I'm only ever going to see the same 10 pieces of software.
Right. I'm just trying to get an understanding of how this is functioning, because I'm kind of on the side. Like, if you're adding a repository that has proprietary software and you're aware of that, then is there really a place to complain when it's getting featured and there's no real discrimination happening based on what's getting featured?
Maybe there should be
like a filter.
Should be split. Maybe it should have FlatHub free and FlatHub non-free, a bit
Or
like Debian free and non-free.
Or if there's a line for the license, maybe have an option in GNOME software to filter out certain licenses.
Yeah, they've been asked. There's a bug filed for that, asking that you could just choose. I don't want to see any proprietary software.
Alan, I've got an absolutely spot-on troll for you and Martin. Put a ZX Spectrum specific game in the featured software and see if he spots it.
So we do take requests. So if people do find new and interesting software, we will put it in the featured list. And so yeah.
I did enjoy the I think it was featured on either Facebook or Twitter, the Caprine messaging tool for Facebook Messenger. That one was really nice.
I like that. I know a lot of people, because it's marketed as a privacy respecting messenger client, and everyone's like, wait a minute, Facebook Messenger privacy, what are you talking about?
Actually, I use Caprine all the time. I actually like it, so
it's great. Like the fact that it can hide the indicator that tells someone you're typing,
right?
That's privacy, and it can hide the little ticks that show you've seen messages. It's that kind of thing that you might not want to show to everyone.
Oh yeah, and
it's a nice idea.
I mean, I may not want to use Facebook Messenger all the time, but it is the best way to communicate with certain people that they're not going to be on Telegram, they're not going to be on any of the other platforms, so it's Facebook Messenger.
The only thing I don't like is it's distributed as a snap, but then again, I can choose to build it from source. So
you're welcome.
It's all about choice. I got a question for you guys who are not going to be here till the next Biddle Europe. So, Robin, you reminded me that this is the last Biddle Europe for the year, basically. Yeah. So, we will probably be doing on the regular Biddle a predictions episode for 2020. So if you guys, Jill, Robin, the Bearded Wonder, if you guys want to jump in with some predictions you may have for 2020, they will get logged in our predictions.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So, the Bearded Wonder, do you have any predictions for 2020 for Linux or tech? Linux, I guess.
I can't think of anything at the moment. I must admit, my prediction for this year came true, which was that I did on the Mintcast, which was that there'd be a new Raspberry Pi. I think it's probably
that's a safe one.
But,
yeah.
Well, actually, I don't think it was, because they kept denying there was going to be a new one this year. But so I think we're out of that one. But I think for me, is that Linux is probably just going to get better and better. I think the support for everything that's out there now is just going to get better, because you look at the developments with drivers for all your new graphics cards and things like that. I think there's going to be a lot more of cooperation with the manufacturers of the drivers for Linux in the next 12 months. I think that's going to be the big thing.
Better drivers.
Yeah.
Duly noted. Jill?
Yeah.
Do you have any predictions?
Yes. So one of the biggies is Proton gaming on Linux is just going to get better. And Lutris is getting better. In fact, he's going to be working on it full time because he just got the grant, the Epic Games mega grant. So I'm excited about that.
And we didn't get to talk about that either.
Yeah. I just forgot about that. So that's very exciting. And then actually, Microsoft Teams came to Linux. Now 365 will be coming to Linux, and I see it happening this year.
365 coming to Linux. Wow, that is a bold one there.
Watch this space, Jill. Watch this space.
Hey, I don't underestimate that at all. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect prediction that is not, some people might look at as not there yet, but I think that's a great prediction.
The fact that Teams came over, that was huge. A lot of people are not realizing what a big deal that was. Because that is an element of 365, and with Microsoft, what they're doing with Linux, it just seems natural, and that someday the Windows kernel will be the Linux kernel. I mean, I see it happening,
So
whether I like it or not.
Jill, can you explain Teams? Because for somebody like me who's never used it, doesn't even know what it is.
Yeah, well, here's the irony: is I don't use it, but like Pedro Mateus uses it at work with the NHS, and it's basically like it combines a Skype and chat into one application, but for business, for big business.
Right.
Does Teams work on XP? Because aren't the NHS still on XP?
No, it's still on Windows 7 at the moment.
The extended security maintenance.
So yeah, it is the team collaboration software, like Discord is for us gamers.
Right.
So
okay.
So it's very important that came over, and but just Linux drivers in general are getting better. I think we're going to see more people using the Linux desktop. That is happening. It's really growing. And a lot of that has to do with, Ubuntu and Mark Shuttleworth saying, now with AI and the cloud, we need to focus on our desktop for Linux. And I think they're really going to push that forward.
I'm sorry. Mark Reeves in chat.
Yeah, I've just read that.
He says, I predicted 2020 there'll still be one person that thumbs down every Big Daddy Linux video without or before even watching it.
Yeah.
That's like such a safe bet, Mark. I mean, you got to come up with something better than that. Jill, did you have any others or no?
No, I'm sorry. I did three things. So
Robin?
So I could probably top that as well. I'm going to predict three things as well.
Okay.
Firstly, before I get onto that, Jill, I use Teams at work, and we can also integrate our SharePoint sites with it as well. So within the Teams clients, I haven't tried it on Linux yet since they announced it. That's one thing yet I'm to try and install after the show tonight on my Elementary build here. But on the Windows build, the client enables us to actually embed some SharePoint pages as well, like a wiki site. So when you create a team, you can also allow your team to go and actually access their SharePoint site from within Teams, which is brilliant.
Nice.
But we can have a discussion offline if you like on that one.
Yeah.
So to my predictions. So I'm going to say that because of the Windows 7 end of life, that Linux is going to be big next year, definitely. My first prediction would be, given the announcement this week, NVIDIA are now going to concentrate on Linux a bit more. We're going to see a lot of gamers moving over to us, definitely. Zeb, I do want to try your Euro truck, so I'm going to try it. I'm going to ask somebody. I'm going to ask somebody for a Steam subscription for Christmas. So there's that. Secondly, I think you're right about Office coming to the platform. Obviously, at the moment, we can do everything via a web client, but I definitely feel there will be some Linux apps at some stage during the year, maybe latter part of Q4, perhaps. But maybe. And thirdly, this is for you, Rocco.
Okay.
This channel is going to be big. It's great. Every time I tune in, every week I see more and more new faces, including here on Europe Tonight. So just watch this space, and you're doing a fantastic job, everybody, and I'm immensely proud to be able to come on this channel and share my thoughts and experiences with everybody. I'm making some brilliant friends online as well, so thank you everybody for following me on Twitter and looking at all my posts, etc. But I wish everybody on the channel a very happy Christmas, and here's to a happy 2020.
Aw, Thank you, Robin. That was awesome.
Very nice.
Without lights next time.
All right. Let's go down the list here. Big Pot, are you going to make it for the regular Biddles or no?
I don't know, but most probably yeah, because I won't have school in the next couple of weeks. So till next year, I just have about a week worth of school. So
okay,
I will be able to get at 2:00 in the morning. So
all right.
I will probably come.
Well, we'll save your predictions for the prediction episode then. Alan, I don't know if you're going to make it. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. So, you want to get some predictions in here?
So tonight, my daughter is out at a party, and I've got to go and pick her up in a minute. And she's got her friends staying over, so I have to keep it quiet. So I won't be able to be in here. So she's got a sleepover. I have two predictions that I've just come up with off the top of my head. So these might be wacky. I suspect in 2020 there will be no mainstream Linux distros that ship ZFS by default other than Ubuntu.
Safe bait.
Yeah.
Does that include? So is that a guarantee that Ubuntu will be? Am I reading into that, or?
Well, we've already got ZFS on the ISO. I'm just saying
by default,
no mainstream distro will ship with ZFS on the ISO. I'm not saying it will or won't be the default.
Okay,
it will be. It's on the ISO.
Yeah.
Nobody else.
And before the argument starts, because Alan's been with this one in Telegram, mainstream, not some weird obscure distro that's got 4 users on it. Mainstream.
The way you initially worded it made it sound like that Ubuntu was going to go default ZFS in like 2010 or something.
Well, obviously, we have to go back to the cornerstone of Linux and say that it has to be on DistroWatch, right?
Top 20.
Yeah, and what's the second one, Alan?
Mainstream distro is one that has more users than developers, right?
So, yes. Okay, and the second one, Windows Subsystem for Linux will overtake desktop Linux in number of installs in 2020.
How would we measure that?
Maybe Microsoft will tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're public with everything else, so
maybe.
Okay.
Maybe they won't. I don't know. But maybe that's one of those.
That's not a good prediction, dude. I mean, we're supposed to be happy here. That's not a good prediction.
Hang on a minute. Hang on. WSL has existed for how long? Couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'm suggesting that within another year, the total number of WSL users will eclipse the total number of desktop Linux users we've had for 15, 20 years. So this has accelerated the number of Linux users. We're going to double the number of Linux users in the next year, is what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Thanks to WSL.
That's much clearer. Much clearer.
Is that a more positive?
That's a more positive spin on that. Because I didn't like that first one.
Sorry.
Rocco, have you got your budget ready for Session Adela's appearance on the next show?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen, dude. Just saying. All right, Yannick, you got any predictions, dude?
Yeah, well, lots have already been said, but I think the gaming part is going to be a real thing with Proton, getting better, and as Jill said, Lutris is getting better too. And not only for games. I mean, Lutris can install regular apps on Linux without having to tweak your wine configuration. So that will also, I guess, help install applications on Linux. So maybe it will bring more users to Linux.
Yes.
So contrary to Alan, I predict that 2020 will be the year of the Linux desktop.
I didn't say it wasn't. I'm just saying it'll be on Windows.
That's awesome. Well, Farron has said in chat that he predicts that Farron OS will have a release this year. So there's a wild prediction for you.
Very good.
Right.
Anyone have any predictions
Is that insider knowledge?
Maybe.
So, anyone have any predictions on what the result of the Ubuntu podcast curry is going to be?
We just don't know.
Has there even been a curry meeting set up yet.
It's too early.
No, February. It'll be February. Before
January, February.
Yeah.
Well, I predict they will come back, as they always do.
Yes.
And just
we
so
might
you
have to
know,
wait for the groundhog to see a shadow or not to determine whether there's another season.
Oh, Tyler. That was awesome.
and just so you know, Alan, I may not have coined that phrase of distro hoppers, but I sure perfected it.
Oh, blimey.
You had to listen to it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Some inside info there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anybody who may not be here later want to get a prediction in? They might want to put in now.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I'm like, I'll be here tonight, so.
Well, it won't be. This episode that I'm talking about won't be until the last episode of the year, which will be the 28th. So that's 2 weeks away. So we have next week, and then the following week will be the last middle of the year, which will be our prediction episode. And we'll probably end up, if I can find the time, or if I can find somebody else to find the time, I would like to go back to last year and rewatch that and see what everybody talked about and maybe bring some of those up, some of the more funnier ones.
That's a very good idea.
So
unfortunately, Solus was the year before, so we can't
stop
keep
it,
bringing that
Seb.
back.
Hey, my prediction for this year was that Microsoft would release a Windows based on the Linux kernel. Yeah, we still got another 3 weeks, so we're good.
Nearly.
Save that prediction for the
Maybe.
next decade, maybe.
Come on.
Not gonna happen ever.
It can happen. It can happen. All right. Well, I have one more question for you guys, and it may take up a lot of time, so I don't know if we'll get everybody in. But what do you think the biggest issue is for facing Linux in 2020?
For me, it's regression. They produce an absolutely awesome distro. Up comes a update, and things break. I think we need more of the community to help out testing, because even a company as large as Canonical can't have every single type of hardware and software out there to help test regressions. So I think it's everybody's duty and responsibility to try their best to help out and test the software, so that new users who come along don't suddenly go, oh, well, it worked last week. Now I've done an update and it's broken. What's going on?
Yeah, but Zeb, one thing I will say, and credit to you, Alan, as well, Ubuntu allows at least an error report to be fed straight back to the developers. I don't see that in any other distro.
Don't know. I don't really look at that type of thing because I'm one of the worst at filing bugs. So I'm going to try and make sure
it's very
I follow
rare.
my own words. Yeah.
It's very rare you see me logging bugs on any of the distro sites, and I've only logged 2 with Ubuntu. That's it.
And
I feel like
we need to do it better.
That's a personal
good
choice.
New Year's resolution. Do a better job at submitting bug reports.
Yep.
Alan, I'll be happy to test 2004 for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I think we need to make it easier for people to report issues. So going along with, people need to report them. We just need to make it super streamlined, stupid easy for people to be able to say this thing's busted and report stuff to us. Because right now, the process for filing a bug is pretty painful, especially if you've not got a Launchpad account, and it's just a bit horrible. So it's on our radar, and it's something that hopefully should be improved next year.
And you guys are going to find it really hard to try and replicate that issue as well, if it's hardware that's good for you and bad for the user.
I know this doesn't scale well, but I have to say that the Mint team for the 19.3 beta, they're just using GitHub to capture issues, and GitHub is so easy to use to just...
Yeah, System 76 do the same, I think. I think they have a GitHub issue tracker for a lot of their stuff. But I've said this before. it works for small projects.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, I knew it wouldn't work for.
It doesn't work for like millions of users.
All right. Anybody else want to get in on the biggest issue?
Yeah, I could say a couple of things. Specifically, one, my biggest problem with Linux, and I think that will be a problem for adoption still, is the louder and obnoxious parts of the community. We so claim community is great, but there are still parts of the community that are so loud and so obnoxious that they drown out the good parts of the community, like Biddle, like Destination Linux, and stuff like that. They heavily drown it out and create something of a rejection of Linux, or I will stay away from this because I can't deal with that. For me, it was at first also that I didn't want to go to Linux because there are parts of the community that said I can't do stuff because they were proprietary, for example. And just through my research, through my finding, I actually found out you can still do stuff that are proprietary.
Yeah, and I will counter that things, especially with communities like Biddle and Destination Linux, things are so much better in that regard now compared to 5 years ago. And especially some of these communities have challenged my own views and how I express some of my own frustrations with issue A or issue B.
Yeah, I think it's something that we all need to work on. And Big Pod, you said they're louder than other places. And I think that we don't need to be louder. We just need to drown out all of that negativity with just being an open, friendly community. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we need to do better at. But I think it's something that's attainable. I think we can drown that out.
And even on a project level, I'm seeing communities like the GNOME and the KDE social media accounts congratulating each other on releases and supporting each other when they run into legal trouble like patent trolls. Yep. Or I see distributions doing this as well with Fedora and Ubuntu.
Yeah, I wonder who runs the Ubuntu stuff.
I mean, at the same time, you still have lots of people going, oh, my distro is the best and yours is the worst, and don't choose yours, you're a loser. So there are those people are still there, and it's going to be very, very hard to drown them in our goodness.
Those people just suck.
Yeah,
true.
I know that, you know that, but we have to see that from the outside.
But I think
it's always the one who shouts louder that's get noticed.
And I mean, part of it is when people ask for help, I think some people need to stop using the OTFM answer. Now,
depending on their community,
I mean, I'm not gonna say what that actually means on here, but the thing is, these people sometimes might not be able to take something that's written in the manual and be able to apply it the way that the manuals. They might be reading the manual and they might be still confused, and then someone tells them to read the blank manual and.
Well, fantastic manual.
Thankfully, there's a lot in the community now that will then jump on that post and say, well, that's not always helpful. So if you do this, and then they'll start to guide that user along. Thankfully, I'm seeing more kind and nice people in the community now than I am seeing those RTFM merchants.
The other one that I'm running that I still tend to run into sometimes is when somebody says, I have a problem with X, and then there's a response with, well, have you tried using Y instead of X? And this kind of ties into that episode that Martin and Alan had on the Ubuntu podcast about distro hopping. It's like, I want to solve the issue on X, not jump over to Y.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to your point, you can't change people. There's no way we're going to change those bad apples or whatever you want to call it. You're not going to change those people, but what you can do is do what you can at your level in what you see. And if each of us does that, each of us, maybe when we see somebody being treated like that, we step up and say something. And if everyone in the community does that, I think we will drown those people out.
Yeah, Rocco, to your point, So when I think of my experience I used Linux for a long time without any regard for the community because I had no interest. My visibility of the community were people that I had no interest in interacting with. And until I found, I mean, my sort of path, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing was Michael Tennell on This Week in Linux, and then Destination Linux, and then you because of your involvement with starting Destination Linux, and then all of these wonderful people that I now am friends with, and you know, all around the world. It blows my mind that this community does exist, but damned if I knew it existed until I was able to make those connections. And so your point about drowning it out, it's not so much that there needs to be a loud voice doing that. It's the more positive stuff that's out there, the more people that are putting out, you know, going to forums and posting things, creating videos, whatever it is that you do that you want to participate, however you do that, that's how those things happen, right? And we've talked about marketing over and over. We've talked about, you know, the fact that when Linux doesn't come installed on your system, you know, the likelihood of you ever using it is slim to none. There's so many, you know, different avenues that people look at as, well, how can we get deeper penetration with Linux? And the reality is that, in my opinion, it's very much grassroots. It's that person that says, I'm having a problem with my computer. It's Rocco. It's you putting it on your dad's computer. It's Vince putting it on his dad's computer. It's that's how this stuff works, you know?
Yep.
You know, on another note, to kind of add on what Eric said, I'm loving how there's a lot more cross contamination between these communities over the last 3 years. I started jumping into more communities when Chris from JB pointed out Late Night Linux, and then I jumped into that Telegram group, and then from there I started jumping into groups like Destination Linux, and then from there I found Biddle, and now we got interviews happening between but whether it's Linux Spotlight or Brunch with Brent.
Yep,
and it's fantastic.
It is. Well, on that note, we do have to go. It is way past time, and that 2 hours flew by like it was nothing fun. Everybody gets a last word, so PZ.
I just want to wish everybody in the chat a very early Merry Christmas. We won't see you, some of you, again until the New Year. So I hope you have an absolutely wonderful time and a happy holidays. And thank you, Rocco, for putting this on not only once a month for us in Europe, but every week for the rest of the world to join in. It is simply awesome. Thank you.
The bearded wonder, Tony. Last word.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to echo Zeb and say thanks for putting this on, Rocco, giving us a sensible time that we don't have to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning for. But just one point, and it's not a Linux point, but it's actually that other operating system that we've been talking about a little bit tonight. If you've got friends and family who will not make the transition, you can still do the free upgrade to Windows 10 from Windows 7 and 8 if you need to. So obviously with end of life coming in January and you want to keep family and friends secure, please remember that.
Did you just recommend on a Linux show that we upgrade to Windows 10? Is that what you just said, Tony?
I very, very much said if you cannot get people to change.
Thank you, Tony. This was your last ever video.
Just recommending keep your friends and family safe.
All right, continue, Tony. Go ahead.
No, thanks very much, Rocco. Same as Zeb. Wishing everyone a happy new year. And seasonal greetings, but also maybe we should start a campaign like Zeb did last year to get into self. Maybe we should start a campaign and a crowdsource to get Rocco to Odd Camp for 2020.
There we go.
Maybe.
Yay.
So, happy New Year, everyone.
Tony, last word.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Rocco. The European version is a bit earlier, so I keep awake easier. Although I didn't have a lot to say tonight, but it was an interesting conversation. I'll echo what Zeb said in wishing everybody a happy holiday season. For those that I won't see or speak to, again till next year. Can I promote Mac? Or, oh no, perhaps not. No, okay. Just a thought. And I'll hopefully be awake and see you all later.
Unfortunately, Tony, you didn't get to install the Next Distro Challenge until we actually pick it. All right.
Yeah,
So you have
Rocco,
to
I
wait.
think you should give Tony for the Europe edition just a personal challenge, so he has something to do. While
That's a good
I
idea.
have to go and spend time with the wife now.
Okay. Peter, last word.
I'm just absolutely amazed that Robin found Christmas lights after Nate finished with his open source house.
Why? Because Nate took them all?
Nate used them all in his house.
That's right. It's
Not all of
just a
them.
couple hundreds.
The last of the rejects.
Yeah, we've still got stock in the UK. We're okay.
All right, Jill, last word.
Okay. Happy holidays to everyone here. I love you all. I love this community. You know, it's my part of my greater Linux family and all the podcasts that I love and all the communities I'm in. I love you guys all. And something's interesting is I'm actually going to be podcasting Christmas Day. If you want to
Really?
listen to Linux Weekly Daily Wednesday, I'm going to be Christmas
It
morning.
is Wednesday. Oh my gosh.
So it's I love doing the show so much. I'm not even going to miss it on Christmas Day, but I'm going to, have family gathering after it. And we're going to be on New Year's, but I think I'm going to miss New Year's for a family event.
Okay.
How many hours are you behind us, Jill?
Well,
Just thinking,
we'll have to put that in the calendar that you're streaming on Christmas Day.
Yeah, because I don't think anyone else will be. So.
Okay.
Well, actually, I have a recording on Christmas Day. But,
oh my
Oh, you
gosh.
do?
Well,
Okay.
there will be a Linux Spotlight that comes out Christmas Day, but it will be pre-recorded, so it
Oh,
won't be
cool.
live.
Awesome. So you have some other content. Yay.
All right, Robin, last word.
Well, that was going to be my next question: is are you going to greet us with a spotlight on Christmas Day?
Yes, there will be a Spotlight Christmas Day.
Okay, cool. Yeah, happy Christmas, everybody, and I wish you all a safe and happy holidays, and stay safe, stay warm. Looking forward to a big 2020 coming up, and Rocco, I'm still waiting for that spotlight invite.
You're going to be on. You're going to be on. Just saying. You wait.
Prediction
Tyler,
2020.
It will be in 2020. That's my prediction. Tyler, last word.
Thank you for doing an extra show every month. I enjoy taking part in both shows on the second Saturday of every month. Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to everyone that won't make the regular show for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I really enjoyed the Linux Spotlight that you did with Ryan this week. That was a good one.
Yep. Yeah, Ryan is one of those nice guys in the Linux world. You know what I mean?
He used to run the lug out here in Lawrence.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Eric, last word.
Well, thanks, Rocco, for doing this. I like having the Europe edition and the Biddle on the same day because I'm usually asking you to extend Biddle to like 4 hours anyway. So this is perfect. It's great to see everybody. Happy holidays, and I'll see most of you, but for the folks that I won't see, Tony and Robin and Yannick, you guys, happy holidays. See you soon.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Big Pod, last word.
Happy holidays to everyone, and just want to say that Biddle actually helps with a lot of the communities, especially with the whole what distro is better. Distro challenge shows that we can use any distro to do our daily life, even if it isn't our preferred distro.
Yep. Alan, last word.
Well, Merry Christmas to those who I'm not going to see. I know some people have seen me for the first time, but Merry Christmas and have a great New Year.
All right. Eris, last word.
Thank you, everybody who makes possible this double dose of Biddle.
Yannick, last word.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you, Rocco, for the Europe edition of Biddle. That really was one of my highlights of the year, being able to join at a decent time Unfortunately, I can't join as much as I would like, but I enjoy every time. Thank you very much for this community. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Nate, last word.
Thank you.
That's
okay.
I really enjoy this. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's cool.
I hyphenated it.
Okay.
So no, I like the Europe edition. It's nice to have the European folks on. So it's good.
So that
thanks.
All right, Bill, you just got here, but you get a last word anyway.
Oh yeah, thanks for Zoom for messing up my settings. I just want to say something that some people saw it in the channel, but Eric does so much work and he doesn't always get the credit. And he had a nice upgrade for Discourse that was very, very fun for him this week. And he puts a lot of work in keeping Discourse, the website, and not everybody really knows it. And I just want to make sure that as we go into Christmas, thank you for all the work you do, Eric.
Here.
Yep. Thank you very much, Eric. Appreciate it.
Yeah, agree.
Yay.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for us. We are officially closed for business. I just want to thank all of you guys, especially, I will thank you other guys later, okay? But all of you guys that only joined the Biddle Europe, because that's the only time that you can, Jill, Tony, Robin, and Yannick, thank you very much for being here, because without each of you guys showing up, we wouldn't be what we are. Everybody makes up the community, every single person. So I appreciate you guys being here.
You're welcome.
Aw.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We love you, Rocco.
We do.
Yeah.
We love you all.
Yes, we love everyone.
All right. So coming up on the Biddle regular edition, we have Daniel and Cassidy from Elementary Team going to join us for hopefully both 2 hours, both 2 hours. And we're going to give our take on Elementary OS, and we're going to have a little question and answers session with them as well. So join us for that in less than 3 hours at 8 p.m. Eastern. And until next time, long live Linux.
Bye.
Bye.
See yous.